you. And when Deb asked, I'd like to see you, when Deb asked me to read from the New Living Translation, I had never heard of it. But, you know, how thankful we are that on the Bible in our phone, all I had to do was press on the, if I can get it now, press on the button, and I got the new translation faster than I could have even replied to Deb on the phone. So as Deb said, John chapter 1, and my phone has gone to chapter 2. Wait on. Doesn't like my touch. John chapter 1 and verses 1 to 14. Prologue, Christ the eternal Word. In the beginning the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He came into the very world he created, but the world didn't recognise him. He came to his own people, and even they rejected him. But to all who believed him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. They are reborn not of a physical birth resulting from human passion or plan, but a birth that comes from God. So the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and we have never seen his glory, and we have seen his glory, glory of the Father's one and only Son. Thank you, Liz.
December is crazy month. Lizzie, I know you love Christmas. I went to Kmart yesterday afternoon. What was I thinking? Crazy Christmas shirts, lots of them, around the auditorium this morning, and a little bit of headgear as well, I see. No names mentioned. End of school, Christmas parties, work parties, overflowing trolleys, menu planning, lots of food, too much chocolate. I've already got into mine. Crazy month, Christmas. The culturally, socially expected question on everyone's lips is, what are you doing for Christmas? True? What are you doing for Christmas? In terms of church, we're accustomed to Christmas carols, thanks Deb, to Christmas messages from Luke's Gospel. You know the story, baby in a manger, Joseph and Mary, angels suddenly appearing, shepherds going, what is this? Animals around. Luke, in fact, gives the most comprehensive explanation of the birth of Jesus. Mark does not even mention it. And Matthew has some. So does John. 4 Gospels. One little verse. Can we have that first slide, please, Dave? What happens when Jesus moves into the neighbourhood? John chapter 1, verse 14. What happens when Jesus moves into the neighbourhood? John has a different way of writing. He's a little bit mystical compared to the other three Gospels. The Word became human and moved into the neighbourhood. Christians speak Christianese. Have you noticed? We talk about the Word. It's the Bible. But we call it the Word. The original Word was Jesus. Jesus came before the written Word. Marge read to us, in the beginning was the Word. I'll have the second slide, thanks Dave. And the verses from 1 to 5 tell us that the Word already existed. Okay, this is Jesus Christ, already existed. The Word, Jesus, was with God. The Word was God. Is your head going, huh? The Word gave life to every single thing that was created. And his life, the life of Christ, brought light to everyone. My head's exploding. That is too much for me to take in. This cosmic Christ, unexplainable, I trip over this word, unfathomable, got it? How is that able to be comprehended? Transcendent, beyond experience, understanding. The Word, Jesus Christ. Along comes cousin John, Jesus' cousin John, in verses 6 to 9. He's the messenger boy. And he makes this announcement. It's as if God says, these people aren't going to get this cosmic Christ. So John writes, John the writer of the Gospel of John talks about John, the cousin of Jesus, two different Johns. And along comes this human cousin of Jesus to try and explain what is about to happen. And then from verses 10 to 13, we discover what happened. So the cosmic Christ, John explaining, cousin John, about what is about to happen, and then what did happen. And the Gospel of John, as Marge wrote to us, says that Jesus came into the world he created, but people didn't recognise him. They weren't aware of who he was. And then it says he came to his own people. Jesus came into the Jewish nation as a Jew. And this word says they rejected him. And it also says that some believed and accepted and were able to say, I am a child of God. So unaware, rejected, but some believed and accepted. That's a very brief outline. Cosmic Christ, cousin John, and what happened. But I want to bring verse 14 back and squeeze it between John, cousin John's announcement, and how people reacted to Jesus. And we're just going to sit with verse 14 in this space. What happens when Jesus moves into the neighbourhood? This cosmic Christ took on human form and moved into the neighbourhood. That's the Message translation, or paraphrase. I love that. He moved into the neighbourhood. I was somewhere, I forget, but I was surrounded by trolleys this week. I forget if it was the mall or the city centre, but somewhere there. And there were Christmas carols being sung. Is the word broadcast? You know what I mean. And I heard, joy to the world, and I stopped. And Deb, I really wanted you to sing this morning.
Sorry.
So I'll have to sing now. Joy to the world, the Lord has come. This cosmic Christ. Joy to the world, the Lord has come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. I don't think I've ever realised how deep that carol is. I want to talk about just two aspects of Jesus' life when he moved into the neighbourhood. The first one, Jesus moved into their spaces. We've just finished a 12-part series on conversations with Jesus, and I want to refer to two of those conversations that Jesus had that illustrate that Jesus moved into their spaces. And the first one is Matthew chapter 9. Jesus was leaving Capernaum and he saw Matthew. Matthew was at work, sitting in his tax collector's booth. And Jesus said, Matthew, I want you to be one of my followers. So Matthew upped and became one of the followers of Jesus. And he said, Jesus, I invite you to my house. Come into my space. Come into my house. And the second conversation, Luke 19, Jesus was passing through Jericho. And Zacchaeus, another tax collector, little short man, vertically challenged. He ran and he climbed a tree so he could see Jesus. Jesus then said to him after he said, now come down, I'm coming to your house. I'm coming to stay at your house. Isn't that a bit rude? In our culture it is. I'm coming to stay at your house. I'm coming to move into your space. And David Watson last year gave us a very good background to the tax collectors, the fact that they were working for the Romans, the enemy, the invader. So tax collectors were the lowly people. They were the low-life. They were the ratbags. And Jesus there is hanging out with them. And he got flack. Jesus got flack, especially from the religious leaders. I have spent quite a number of years living in the suburb of Auburn in Sydney. It is a multicultural suburb, something like 140, 150 different ethnic groups represented. I was one of the few white faces. I chose to live there. I chose to be part of that community. I have a friend called Fatma, an Arab lady, a Muslim lady, and there were times when I just didn't get the Arab culture. And as I got to know her, I said to her one day, you help me understand my holy book. Now, Fatma's illiterate. And she said, how can I help you understand your holy book? And I said, well, the stories in here of Middle Eastern hospitality. I'm an Aussie. I'm an Anglo-Aussie. I don't get Middle Eastern hospitality. I met her at a certain point and I visited her regularly. And whenever I went to her house, whatever time, I would get a meal. I could say, but I've already eaten. She'd say, here, have some more. My mother taught me never turn up at meal times at people's houses. It is rude. So I'd go at 10 in the morning and I'd get fed. I'd go at 2 in the afternoon, I'd get fed. I'd go 5 in the afternoon, I'd get fed. I'd go 8 o'clock at night and I'd get fed. And I'd go, I just don't get this. I'm turning up at meal times until I discovered that through Fatma, she told me, you coming to my house is honouring me. You are honouring me by visiting. And I thought, wow, that is exactly what Jesus did to Matthew. That's exactly what Jesus did for Zacchaeus. He was honouring them by entering their spaces. He met them where they were most comfortable. Come to my house. Matthew said, come to my house. Zacchaeus, okay, you're coming to my house. Fatma, come to my house. Jesus no longer lives on this earth. That's obvious. 33 years in the context of broad history. A little bit of time when Jesus, the Word, moved into the neighbourhood. We, Christians, are who people see and hear. We are the Jesus people see and hear. That's us. Jesus in human form is no longer here apart from through us. We're his hands and feet. For many years, as part of my role in a mission agency, was to train Christian workers to work cross-culturally, to go into different cultures, to go into their space, into where they were comfortable. And I said, you will be uncomfortable. You will be uncomfortable in those spaces, but those people will be comfortable. Don't extract them, go into their spaces. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11 says that God has put eternity into the hearts of everyone. In other words, God is already at work in people's hearts. God is already at work in people's hearts, out there. I could give you examples of situations here in Dubbo where I've gone into spaces and I could see that God was at work. But I'm not going to give an example because Dubbo is a small community. And you'll be going, oh, that must be so-and-so. I'm going to give an example from the life of Fatma, my friend in Sydney. I received news through one of her sons that her 27-year-old son's body had been floating in the Parramatta River. So I went round to see Fatma and discovered that the lounge room was full, and I mean full, of women and children. I went in, I hugged Fatma. What do you say? What do you say? No words. I discovered how Arabs mourn, how they grieve. You never leave anyone alone. And one of the ladies there said to me, we have to be here because Fatma can't carry her broken heart alone. She was not left alone for a good week. The house was full. I spent a lot of time there. There were women serving tea. There were women preparing meals. And at one stage, there were women cleaning. At one stage, there were a few people that were tired, including me, because it's tiring to be in that situation with a grieving mum. So I went into a bedroom, 2 single beds, and there were probably 5 women lying down on these beds and a couple of babies as well. There were 2 women I'd not met before, and I said to them, oh, I'm Liz. Who are you? Oh, we're from Syria. Oh, whereabouts in Syria? Oh, we're from Damascus. I said, Damascus? I loved Damascus. They went, you've been to Damascus? I went, yeah, I have. One of the perks of my job was I got to travel. I didn't tell them that, but yeah. So I'm just explaining to you. And they said, what did you love about Damascus? And I said, the wall. And they went, the wall? I went, yeah, it reminded me of a Bible story that took place in Damascus. And I started telling the story. Meanwhile, they sit up and lean forward. I started telling them about Saul of Tarsus, this religious leader who thought he knew Jesus, and then he had an encounter with Jesus. Ended up in Damascus. The other religious leaders didn't like him anymore because he was a follower of Jesus. So Saul of Tarsus, who became Paul, was lowered in a basket over the wall so that he could escape. And these 2 women said, we've never heard this story before. And as I reflected on that later, I thought, what a wonderful opportunity. Going into their spaces where, yeah, I was a little bit uncomfortable. The Quran was being read and the Imam had been to visit. It was like, whoa, this is a bit scary for me as a follower of Jesus. Not that I was afraid of anything. It was more, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to act. But this is their space. So, Jesus moved into their spaces, and secondly, Jesus accompanied people in the messy. Next slide, thanks Dave, thank you. Life can be messy. Boy, can it be messy. Heartache, angst, anxiety, depression, rampant. Anxiety, depression, absolutely rampant. That's not a judgment on my part. I too have suffered from these things. Life is messy. People's situations are messy, confusing. Jesus touched the messy. He absolutely touched the messy. I'll reel off a few of them. Some of them came up in the 12 Conversations with Jesus series. The woman at the well. That immoral woman that no one liked, so she had to come out in the middle of the day when it was hot to get water. Jesus met her in the messy. The woman accused of adultery, and I'll say the blokes as well in that situation. The man with leprosy. Rabbis, teachers like Jesus did not touch people with leprosy. Jesus did. I love Jesus, he broke the law. That appeals to my Aussiness. It's a rule, let's break it. According to the Old Testament law, the word, a man like Jesus, by touching a leper, someone with leprosy, would actually become unclean himself. Jesus touched the messy. We live in a world, real people, real needs. The Word took on human form and moved into the neighbourhood. What I've discovered in life, and I think I said this 2 weeks ago when I spoke, as a 70-year-old, 70, I just love saying that. I've got a bit of experience under my belt. And I've discovered that people want to be listened to. People want to be listened to. We seem to have lost, general sweeping statement, seem to have lost the art of listening. And often people don't even want to be fixed. Sometimes there is no fix. People just want to be listened to, have a safe place to download, be non-judged, to be heard. So my resolve is to listen well in my old age. To listen well and to speak less. So hold me to that. I'm the extrovert that likes to fill spaces with words. To listen well. Jesus took on human form, moved into the neighbourhood. He moved into their spaces and he accompanied people in the messy. As we finish, I have an invitation. I like to give an invitation. It's not a challenge, it's not an encouragement, it's an invitation. Take it or leave it. So here's the invitation. Dave, could you put up the next slide? Thank you. As just before Deb and the team come up, 2 questions to have your own conversation with Jesus about. Number 1, where is God at work in the spaces where your life, or my life, where your life intersects with the lives of others? Where is God already at work out there? And secondly, how can you join in what God is doing? In other words, how can you bring light into that space? So I invite you to have a conversation with Jesus, and then we'll hand back over to Deb and Tim.
Thank you, Liz.